what's up guys, it's Zero here, and today we are here to take a look at our monthly end of month tier list, this time for set 12, but this month it is not just set 12, we also got some very impactful balance changes to decks, namely Luward and Asha, so without further ado, let's get on the tier list. We are keeping the format the same as last time because most of you guys saw in the comments that you enjoyed this format. So I will keep it this way until I think it's something better, but for now I think this is fine. So yeah, so this month the new clans we got, new stuff we got were support for DI, Kagero, Royals, and Shiranui and Nubas. So yeah, so we'll go from bottom up. So let's start claiming stuff from the bottom. So then this deck belongs here, I think. This deck belongs here. I think Asha belongs here now. I think I will put DI here for now, and I'll put yeah, I think I'll leave it at something like this for now. Nothing, yeah. Alright, so we'll go for the first two. We'll go over is Jet and Vanquisher. Both these decks kind of suck. They are here because I think they are baseline a playable deck. But realistically speaking, I don't think things are particularly too good. Asha is down here, all the way down here now, is because this deck after I guess we'll just change order. I think Asha's probably better than these decks. Same with Sharheart. Asha, after getting hit with the traditionalist being the Jingle and Thuria, you're not allowed to play those two together. The deck just really lost what it was like. It lost its niche of being this like giant wall deck that could like grind the game out and then have like a pretty okay finishing turn. So without that, I think the deck just kind of fell all the way down. It's stuck waiting for more support to make it good again. Because it lost the one thing that made the deck good, Jingle Theory. Without Jingle Theory, the deck, sure you're drawing a lot of lost memory, but you don't have the best kill turns, you don't have the good early game, you don't have the best like aggro. You're just kind of sitting there, yeah, getting hit by every other deck now. So yeah, I think this deck is definitely nowhere near as good as it used to be. Even last month, I was already thinking of putting the deck a little bit lower compared to other decks that I put in tier 1 last month. But I decided to leave it at the top for now, for the last month, just because I thought the deck was still doing pretty good things. But now, the deck lost its one good thing, and it's just all the way down here now. So, no, I don't see any reason to put Asha any higher than this. Sharheart, I've seen a lot of people say that this deck is good. I personally do not think so. I think the deck probably is baseline a playable deck, so I do think it belongs to at least be here. But I think I just don't see what other people see in this deck. Like, obviously, guard tricks are cool. You can definitely cheese the point out with stuff like Gilda Race and Sharheart and all that. I think the new Great Sharheart is really good too. I think he like recycles terrain, he pops on stride, so you can randomly hit intercept sometimes. Your point just doesn't have a back row, so I think that's pretty cool. The deck with Bladed Mouse has a resetting advantage, which is also very nice. You can recycle triggers now, which is also really good. But I just don't think the deck is doing anything too like unfair to like warrant putting it any higher. I think the new star is pretty good too. The new star is basically just a draw 2, and then deck obviously still has stuff like back row intercept. So I think the deck has the pieces it needs to be a solid deck, but I don't really see a reason to put it any like higher than here. I think at most I'd bump it up to like playable tier 2, but for now I'll leave it here. But I think the deck is like not like outrageously bad. It's not something I like wouldn't play at all, or something that I'm like just straight up not scared of. But yeah, the Sharheart's the kind of deck where I'm just like, it's doing okay things. Some people rate it higher than this. I personally just don't see it, so I will leave it at tier 2 and has issues for now. Its issues being doesn't do anything unfair. So yeah, so I think this is what I'll prefer. As for Rogue, I think I will put Chaos can stay there. I think Chaos is just a deck that can randomly shut down some decks. It just randomly shut down decks that actually can't deal with locks. So I think Chaos will, until the deck actually was good, I think this deck will realistically always stay like a Rogue tier 2 deck. I think Gurgit belongs here too. Gurgit as a deck I think is about as good as these decks, but I think Gurgit just in the current meta that the game that we're in right now, especially with Luward being worse, with Luward probably being its worst matchup before, still is really bad, but definitely more doable now. Jingle Theory wasn't exactly fun for this deck either, because you would end up decking out before you kill them for the most part. But with the meta that we're in right now, where decks are just like go second, unga bunga, kill you, I think Gold's with both the Gurgits they have access to, the old grade 3 and the new grade 3, I think you have enough ways to like slow those decks down with both of his GB2s. Like Gurgit has like a cool little niche where like even though the deck itself isn't very good, it plays really well into the current meta of just Unga Bunga decks. Retire decks aren't too prevalent right now. I think the only like major retire deck is Kagero, which I think is actually pretty good now. Luard is not as good anymore. You can definitely hit into 15s as opposed to before you can hit into 18s. So you can definitely maybe kill Luard before they like hit that stack of stalling you and all that. So with just how the meta has changed right now, I think Gurgit didn't get any better, but the decks that it really played bad into got worse, and as a result of the other decks that are good now being like near the top of the meta, Gurgit just plays relatively well into those decks. So that's why I would bump it up higher than here, just because I think Gurgit has a niche against those specific decks. If you don't know what these specific decks are, spoilers, it's like Alt Malahari and other stuff. So yeah, so Gurgit I'll leave here, and then as for the playable tier 2 decks, I think Blade Master goes here. I think Night Rose goes here. I think Blasters. I think Blasters are probably somewhere in this range too. If anything, I think Blasters and Night Rose are both like very similar decks. I think actually move Shahart up. I think Shahart probably is better than these decks. So yeah, same thing with Shahart. Let's move it up. But looking at it, I think Shahart is probably at a higher power level than these decks. It's closer to the power level of Blasters and Night Rose. So yeah, I'll just move Shahart up here. So for Night Rose is still doing its things. The support got last month was pretty solid. Songer, Rosette, pretty good strides. New grade 3 Night Rose pretty good too. So yeah, so I think just a very baseline playable deck. Nothing too unfair, nothing particular that makes it bad or anything. It's just there, nothing too special. Blasters are just another Unga Bunga rush deck, but the thing is, it doesn't kill you nearly as well as the other good Unga Bunga rush decks. So that's why it's here. Deck is very consistent, I'll give it that, but your ceiling just isn't that high, and like your floor is pretty high up just because that's just how consistent the deck is. But I think that low ceiling is just really keeping it down for my personal opinion. So I think Blasters are a baseline like playable deck, and then Kagero. I think Kagero is actually very rough for me to rate because Kagero for me, in my opinion, is a deck that in a vacuum is very good. If you just look at the deck as a whole and then see what it looks at, what it does, I think the deck is very good, right? But the issue is that the meta that the game is in right now, I think Kagero just does not do well at all against any of the good decks. Mainly because it's still for the most part a 3-attack deck. Obviously you have Ziegenberg now that you swing 4 times, but for the most part you are still a very slow 3-attack deck that cannot threaten lethal on first stride for the most part, because on first stride your best first stride is Titan. Titan keeps you at 3 swings, and you don't get the crit either because you don't actually be 3 yet. So yeah, so as a whole, I think Kagero is a very good deck. I just don't think Kagero is good in the current meta as to what we're looking at. Like, you look, for example, I think Hari is the hardest matchup by far. You never have a board to retire because everything goes into Soul. Alt Mile will probably rush you down before you can kill them. Even going second, I think that matchup can still be rough. Alt Mile heals down a lot. But yeah, Blade Master I think is a good deck. It's just that it is not the best in the current meta. And then as for so obvious like that, I think all these decks are probably somewhere in the realm of tier 1. I think the deck that I'm the most iffy about is Prisms. I think Prisms is a deck that I can see myself putting back into here, but with the loss of Jingle Thuria, which I think was this deck's worst possible matchup, because you just could not hit the numbers while also pushing damage unless you hit like an absurd amount of triggers on a turn. I think without Jingle Thuria being this like deck that just kept it out, as well as Luard being nerfed as well, because I think Prisms were a deck that could deal with Luard to some degree because you could refund CPU with late a lot, but if you couldn't end the game by like that 3rd, maybe 4th stride point, like once you burn through all your Olivias, you're just kind of in a situation where like you were just waiting to deck out, and with Luard not having those 18Ks to keep them like to wall you out anymore as well, I think Prisms are like a actual like solid deck now, considering you lost like 2 of probably your worst matchups. Again, and against all the other like combo decks, I think Prisms are very much just something like a coin flip now, because again, Prisms are still like this Unga Bunga go second kind of try kill your kind of deck, and as opposed to all the other ones. But I think Prisms have like a slightly lower like kill ceiling on the first stride unless they give you vert on first stride, and then they're also at like 4 or so. So yeah, but the deck does have other ways to make up for that, for the fact that they have ways to survive as opposed to these other combo decks where just try to kill you as fast as possible. Prism still have stuff like Roan and PG and the duo PG to get more guards to actually live against those combo decks and kill on your crackback. So because of that, I think Prisms are actually a very solid meta competitor now, with its 2 really bad matchups out of just nerfed. So yeah, so Prisms here. I think Luard, even after the nerfs, are still a solid lower end of tier 1 deck. Is it better than Prisms? I do not know. I think these two are pretty interchangeable. I think personal bias, I'll just put Luard ahead. I think 0 damage is still the way to play the deck, in my personal opinion. Obviously, it is worse now because you don't have the 18Ks. You just slap in the 15Ks instead over them, so it's strictly a downgrade. But I still think that with 0 damage, it is still the correct way to play the deck because, again, I think I've said this in my the 3rd League video I made. This deck isn't exactly killing you any better from 5 as it was from 3, so there's no reason to give them more CP to kill you with. And the deck can still play like a really strong grind game with like looping PGs and stuff, stacking crits and all that. So because of that, I think Luard is still, even though it's obviously worse without the 18Ks, I think the way Luard was doing his game plan, 18Ks were a really good thing to have, but wasn't like the most necessary thing to pull off this game plan. Obviously, you're like it's easier for decks to hit you now, but I think with the way the deck still plays, I think it's still a very strong strategy, and that's why I will leave Luard here. And yes, this is 0 damage. I think 0 damage is still the best way to play the deck, even after nerfs. And finally, for the other tier 1 decks, I think Fenrir I will move up as well. I think this deck is mad degenerate. This deck got even better with more support, because now you have Ishtar, and Ishtar is a very good first stride to go into the damage deny you, or just don't have the Taros in Soul Need to kill them on first stride. Ishtar lets you push 4 free without using any CB, if you choose not to use CB at least. They got slightly more consistent with the Revelation PGs because the PG has Revelation, so you can actually use it to dig deeper into your deck. And yeah, this deck just does very degenerate things. The deck plays very different from all the other combo decks, but at the end of the day, it's still like a Unga Bunga combo deck. It just plays slightly differently. But the reason I won't put it any higher, I won't put it up here, is because one, the deck really, I think, is just inconsistent as compared to the other combo decks. You cannot draw or damage all your Taros. You really need at least 2 in Soul to do your combo. The deck is also just very prone to dying because you can't play healers in this deck because you don't have space for them. And because of all those factors, I don't think I'd be willing to put the deck up here, but I do recognize it as a tier 1 deck, just not as good as the other ones in my personal opinion. And finally, for the other new deck is Shiranui. I think this deck goes probably somewhere I definitely think it's worse than Fenrir. I think it's probably somewhere here-ish. It just depends what you value. I just leave it here, I guess. Shiranui is the new deck on the block. Its deck was very, very popular this month on ladder. This deck is, even though it's different from what the other Unga Bunga combo decks are doing, it is still doing the same thing. First stride, push you to 5, maybe even kill you with Maga and Tenbu. Second stride, they stay at 5. Mugen Lord is probably game because that's at least 3, 4, 5-ish checks from 5. So yeah, it's just another flavor of kill, go second, win game. It's another flavor of that kind of deck. Although I do think this deck is strictly worse than the decks that I'm going to put up here, being these two. Because, even though this deck doesn't need draw its piece or anything like that, and the deck does scale really, really well, the deck really needs to draw the grade to the Genkai, the card that draws you cards when something that dominates swings. If you don't draw Genkai, you just don't have the resources to play the game. You just can't draw cards to play. As opposed to some of these other decks where they can just call cards from deck, call cards from Soul, and form of Hari. The deck just doesn't have that way to generate resources as opposed to these other decks if you don't draw the grade 2. And even though the combos itself isn't piece reliant to do the combos, you are reliant in drawing Genkai to draw you cards to play the game, if that makes sense. Genkai is your combo piece in the deck, and you really need to draw at least one of it by first strike to generate card advantage. But other than that, I think Shiranui is a very solid deck. My initial gripes with the deck was how well could you push the opponent to 5 to actually Mugen Lord them, and turns out when you just have a bunch of scaling rears and and just a bunch of scaling raiders, you can push the 5 really easy on first ride. So the problem that I was concerned of isn't there. So yeah, I think Shiranui is a very, very strong deck. And finally, for tier 1, we have Hari Altmile. These are the two like premier Unga Bunga, go second, hit face, win game kind of decks. Both these decks threaten lethal on first stride potentially, and if they don't lethal on first stride, they'll probably kill you on second stride. And yeah, so I'll put Altmile slightly higher than Hari just because I think Hari also has a very similar syndrome to Fenrir, where if you go first against another combo deck, you will just take so much damage and you're in so much risk of dying because of the fact that if you want to push with the Hari stride, everything will go back into soul, meaning you have no intercept to actually protect yourself. So you will just eat a lot of shit to other decks hitting your face because you have no intercept to protect you with. So because of that, I think Hari is just because of that, I'll put Hari slightly under Altmile, but I think Hari has a much higher ceiling than Altmile. I think if Hari gets to go second, it is by far the best deck in the format. I don't think that's a question for them. I don't think that's a question if Hari gets to go second because if they get to go second, they will first ride probably push you to 5, get like 1 or 2 checks in. You don't down that turn. Next turn, even if you heal down to 4, second hard stride scales your column so well because 9k all your strides that your defensive don't matter and you're dying unless you just have the rest of your cards in your hand. So because of that, I'll put so Hari has a higher ceiling, lower floor, but I personally value Altmile's consistency more because Altmile also doesn't have the issue where Hari has to actually soul charge its pieces. Altmile just needs to call its pieces from deck, so as long as the pieces are in your deck, you can call them. And obviously Altmile can recycle too, so yeah. Because of that, I just value Altmile's like slightly higher consistency, slightly more than Hari's higher ceiling, but I wouldn't fault you if you wanted to like swap these two around. I think both these decks could make a very, very fair claim for being best deck in the format right now, but I think these two right now are the sole tier 1 decks, like the sole like best decks of the format right now. So yeah, so that's it for this month's tier list. Let me know what you guys think about this meta down below in the comments, this tier list, whatever, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace out.